Seventh Circle Gaming analyzes Redfall, a game considered by some to be the worst game ever. But is it really? Stay tuned because our conclusions may surprise you. Now we begin as we usually do here with a bit of full disclosure, and you are welcome to pause the video and read through all of this if you're interested. Otherwise, we'll move on and look at some screenshots. In our first screenshot for today, we're going to share with you the overall map for Redfall. The world is divided into 5 separate regions, all of which have bases to secure by completing additional quests in addition to the mainline story quest. Let's now move on and take a closer look at the world of Redfall. The world of Redfall is rendered in a very realistic art style, although the player character as well as the NPCs do lean far closer to the comic book end of the spectrum than hyperrealism. On the other hand, the user interface for Redfall is pretty standard for the first-person shooter genre. At the top of the screen we have a quest indicator as well as a compass. At the lower left-hand corner of the screen we have a cooldown timer as well as the character health indicator and inventory items indicators. At the lower right-hand corner of the screen we have ammunition counters as well as icons representing the currently selected weapon. We now then move on to our next major portion of the game, which is inventory management. All of the items that we can currently see on the screen have statistics attached to them for players to examine and attempt to optimize based on either their personal preference or the bonuses offered by their player character. Speaking of player characters, we now want to move on and take a quick look at the skill tree. The skill points that are going to be utilized to unlock skills in the skill tree will be gained in the usual way through acquisition of experience points. Some of the skills in the skill tree are going to be shared by all of the player characters, but those that are to the center and to the left of center seem to be more unique to one particular character or the other. Now then, that's all the screenshots we have for you, so let's move on and take a look at our first proper chapter, which is as always immersion. Here, Redfall has earned a below average score of 6.5 out of 15, which isn't an absolutely terrible score. The one thing that we would add here is that we might have included player agency as an aspect of immersion, but it really is the statistics offered by those items that are going to affect the player's choice more than it is the appearance of the item. So then let's now move on to difficulty. Here, Redfall has earned a score of 7 out of 15. Again, below average, but not very much so. The game does have 3 options to select for difficulty, although it does seem that there are hidden statistics or calculations that the game is doing that make the difficulty curve a lot more up and down than the difficulty setting may suggest. We now want to move on to lasting appeal. The game has earned a score of 4.5 out of 15, very much below average. While the game does have multiple character classes to experience the game with, it certainly didn't seem to us as though the special abilities were as important as the weapon that the player was wielding, especially played on solo, which doesn't leave a whole lot for the player to retry the game again, except trying on a different difficulty setting or maybe playing the game as part of a multiplayer group. So then, where does the game stand overall? Overall, Redfall has earned a very surprising score of 6 out of 15. During all of our evaluation sessions, we uncovered very few, if any, glitches, and those that were experienced are not worth mentioning. Now onto some highly subjective statements, so please have your salt handy. Redfall is an uncomplicated game, not a lot of geopolitics to be concerned about, just bad thing happened, go shoot the monsters. It's playable solo, although it really doesn't seem as though it's meant to be, especially with the special abilities that synchronize with others and the excessive amount of environmental traps and explosive barrels littered around the world that solo players are not likely to be able to take advantage of. Players that are looking for a hardcore horror game along the lines of John Carpenter's The Thing should adjust their ideas, as Redfall leans much closer to the Mars Attacks or Army of Darkness end of the spectrum. Is Redfall the worst game ever? Absolutely not. Is it overpriced? Arguably yes, because the amount of content that is offered for the price doesn't support the amount that's being asked for it. However, players that are looking for an uncomplicated game to play with a group of friends wouldn't do very poorly to pick up Redfall when it's on sale. And on that note, we thank everyone who watched all the way to the end of the video. We look forward to seeing you on the next one, and from 7th Circle Gaming, goodbye.